Dead or alive, you're coming with me. I guess that was my. If Arnold Schwarzenegger played Robocop, that's what it'd be. I don't know what the hell that was. I'm a huge movie fanatic Nate, coming to do a review of Robocop 2014. Now, I can't remember, did this movie come out in February? It might have came out like in February or something like that. And if you know anything about me, in February I'm just playing Russian roulette. I'm just, as low as I get, I'm just, it's about, you've suffered through most likely a horrible winter and you're still doing it, and it's just like to get yourself out to see a movie, especially a movie you figure is just going to suck, excuse me, is almost impossible. And then after we did that, me and Matt did that little Robocop trilogy and trailer review for 2014 video and stuff, and I added that most recent at the time trailer to that review. I saw it, I'm like, oh man, because originally I was thinking about seeing it, then I'm like, I'm not going to see it after I saw that trailer. And of course, pretty much almost a week ago at this point, it's June, I'm recording this video on June 9th. It's not uploaded then, of course, a few days later. But, so it came out on Blu-ray, and then I was looking on video / Blu-ray, whatever. And then I frequent blue-ray.com when I was looking at Robocop forums, and some gracious soul who maybe worked at Best Buy or Target or something like that said, why get it now when it's going to be $13 in like 6 days or whatever? And I'm like, oh cool, this, I kind of believe him. This is, so basically as of yesterday, which is Sunday when I'm doing the review, you can get, and for the whole week of whatever, the 8th through the whatever, you can get the Blu-ray of Robocop at Target or Best Buy for, basically what amounts to $13. So I'm like, you know what, that's cheap enough. Let's just do it. Let's just, it's gotta be worth $13, like to own, Blu-ray, don't it? So I got it yesterday after work, and then I watched it last night on the wall, projector with the 5.1, and I kind of liked that, the what's his name, Samuel L. Jackson stuff, of course, was like trying to, they don't do the media breaks in this movie, but Samuel L. Jackson is like, the version of like the media breaks in the movie. And I'm like, it's like, oh, that's kind of cool in a way. And I remember like at the very beginning, like when the title came up, this might have been after this first sequence, that they actually did use the theme, I think, just at the beginning. They used it like twice at the beginning or something, and I was like, oh man, that really, brings back memories and makes goosebumps, like a new rendition of do 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 do, and I was just so happy to hear that, and I was hoping that you'd hear it throughout the whole movie, which I don't think you do. But I'm grateful it's there at all, So, it starts with this, what's his name's in it from, I just recently reviewed Dollman, and Jackie Earle Haley's in it, and I'm like, oh, that's funny. that's cool. He plays the exact same character that this guy played in the movie from last year, the movie that I thought was really horrible, which was, which I think is worse than this, which is Elysium. He played like the exact same character from that movie. He's even got that, that body make you stronger thing on, or whatever the hell it is, endoskeleton or exoskeleton or whatever it is. So, so the beginning scene with that little bit in, what is it, Tehran or something like that, I thought was really, this movie, these like, this news, I can't even remember I just saw it last night, but I can't remember the name of like that news show or whatever, but it's portrayed like media really is, like just pro-American, pro-police, pro-whatever, and it's weird because it's like so subtle that I think a lot of people who actually watch TV and news and stuff and take it as reality, they probably don't even see the humor in, if it's even intended. I don't know if it's even intended. I imagine, I'm assuming it is. But I see it, of course, for what it is, whether they intend it to be that way or not, where it's just like pro-whatever, these people can live, feel secure now that the robots are policing the streets and doing, naked body scans and retina scans and all this shit. So I mean, that's like, that's, I don't think it was intended as being real. I think it was intended as being, what's that word? Satirized, satire, I hope. But regardless, that's the way I took it. So that scene was kind of cool with seeing a new rendition and CGI versions of Ed 209s, and they're like patrolling the streets. So from a visual standpoint and audio and just technical standpoint, that was kind of cool to see, like Ed 209s walking around, and they're kind of cool. The scene was just kind of like whatever. I don't quite understand why those people did that, and I don't like the whole suicide bomber aspect of it, and using the natives from that land and portraying them in that aspect, and it's just like that opening scene kind of, I mean, although it was technically, visually and audioly cool, it just, I thought it was a lame way to start the movie. But you have to lay the groundwork for, since this movie tells a different kind of a story. That's one thing, before I forget, I want to comment on. After, while this movie, halfway through and towards the end of this movie, I was like, you know what, this is kind of a cool, and I can, I knew that, I was like, this is a kind of a cool remake, really, because it's taking a world, a universe of Robocop, and completely just doing something different. And, to me, it doesn't affect, the first movie or any of the sequels or anything like that. But to me, it was just as if there were let's say, which I'm sure there were, there were several scripts written for the first version. There's tons of different ways you can go with any movie. And what was interesting about, at the end of the day, with the remake of Robocop is that it's kind of cool, because it's not a verbatim remake of the first movie. It's a different take, and they went a different route, and it was almost like a part. It was almost like a part 4 in that aspect, where it really wasn't a remake. It was a different. Whereas Evil Dead is so similar, the remake of Evil Dead is so similar that, whereas this is completely different, and I actually give it props for that. I actually give it props for taking that universe and doing something different with it, which the first one, may have done in little ways, but this movie actually spends more time on it. So that was interesting. And when we first meet, of course, Alex Murphy, I don't know who the hell who plays him, just this no Joe Schmo blow go guy. I'm like, oh gosh, that's Murphy, oh boy. He's got no personality, just all my problems with characters now and stuff. And you go in there and he goes into the whatever, and he's basically has to explain himself. And I didn't like how it first began. Instead of that Tehran being the first scene, the first scene should have been the scene with Murphy, I think, because I really hate going into a scene and being introduced to Murphy, and then all of a sudden now he's saying what happened, and we're cutting to that, and it's just it's just too much jumping around for me. It's just show the scene and then show him come in and be reprimanded or whatever about it. I didn't like that in that scene where they're trying to get that gun runner guy or gun pusher. What do they call him? I don't know. Gun runner. I think they're gun runners, right? Where they're trying to get them and infiltrate it, and it's just blah, blah, blah. Another thing, of course, is God, do they even have, does a tripod companies or, camera mount companies out of business? It's everything is on, handheld, and I just hate that. It's just get it on a freaking mount. And just, there were some scenes, with Michael Keaton. It was great to see him back. He was good. And Gary Oldman was good. I think they were pretty much the best two, in my opinion, the best two performers in it. There were some, non-handheld stuff, but then it's just so anyway, basically, to make a long story short, I'm going to go 2.5 stars on the remake of Robocop, or the reimagining. I wouldn't even call it a remake, just Robocop 2014. It's I guess reimagining is a better word. It started off oh God, I should have known better. This is, exactly what I thought it'd be. And then, after, I thought it was a little boring in a way, how he just walks out to the car and it blows him up, and it's just like, that's just like uneventful, you know. But later on, then it was just like whatever. But when he actually became, I was like, this is so lame. But somewhere in between, like the middle, like when he was Robocop and stuff, some of the things they did was really, really great. Like that scene where it's like 8 months later or whatever, and it starts with this scene at a barbecue or whatever, and Frank Sinatra's playing, and I've seen this clip already on YouTube, so I knew what it kind of spoiled it for myself. So I knew that it was what it was. It was like just in his mind, he was dreaming. But that was a brilliant, brilliant way to go like 8 months later, and it's just like, what the hell? He's like, he's fine. You know, he's at a barbecue with his wife and dancing, and it's just like, oh shit. You know, then you realize it's just a dream, and he's not fine. And that was really, this movie amazingly managed to do a lot of tragic. What it did was, you know, at the beginning of Robocop 2, when his wife is in it and he's like gotta pretend like he doesn't know who she is and all that stuff. This is like, it's a remake of 1 and 2, and plus adding more. What I really actually was surprised about this movie is it actually almost spends more time with just him and his character and getting used to being a robot than anything. And that scene, which actually just like, oh my god, I was really impressed by, and actually kind of very, I mean, I'm not generally squeamish, even for, especially in a PG-13 movie, but that scene when they stripped away, oh, they put up the mirror and they stripped away all the parts of him that aren't human. And it's his fucking lungs, his spinal column, and his head and his brain is all that remains. Oh, one thing I think is really stupid about the redesign is his right hand is flesh. That makes absolutely no sense to me. That's just stupid. And they don't really utilize it necessarily. I think there was one point where they may have, like, but they don't even utilize it, like, to touch his wife with it or anything, I don't think. So I thought that was really stupid. But I wouldn't have had that hand be flesh. That was dumb. But when they pulled away all that robotic stuff, I was like, it affected me. You know, it was just like, holy shit. And his lungs are in this little whatever, contained, clear plastic whatever, and you can see him breathing. I was just like, oh man. It's just like PG, you know, the stuff they can get away with in PG-13, shit. But, you know, of course they never did that. They did it in part 2 to a certain extent when they had that, when Robotine made that mock-up of him when he was just, you know, the torso or whatever up. That was the closest they ever got to doing that. I give this movie huge props for doing that scene. And like I say, Gary Oldman is really good in this movie, along with, as is Michael Keaton. So there were some scenes that I thought were really done well, conceived and executed really well like that. Like I say, that first dream that segues into reality and what he really is now. And it's just like, the first movie, they don't do that. They don't show the suffering and the pull and tug, was that a term? Whatever. Tug of war between, you know, him wanting to be human, and he actually wanted to just die when he saw all that robotic stripped away and him and just his brain, head and his lungs left, you know, and he's like, you actually want to see him wanting to die, and it's well, your family, what about your family, and all this and that. So I thought that was great. And you know, the movie's a blur. It's like, I only saw it once. I saw it yesterday, and it's just like, it was getting a little bit late anyway, and I was just like, so the bad guy is who? And basically, you know, this movie does a good job in portraying what, of course, is real by trying to get something accomplished by swaying public opinion, by having and again, this is where it's kind of a remake, partly of Part 2 as well, where they try to make a Robocop 2 by getting whoever, and it just not working, and like just the combination of Murphy, just because who he was or whatever, worked perfectly. And so this plays with cool ideas which haven't been explored in any of the Robocop movies before. I mean, the three main ones. I'm not talking about Crash and Burn and that kind of stuff, which I have hardly seen all of them and hardly will. So 2.5 stars. It was, I'm probably going to rewatch it soon because I was going to rewatch it before I reviewed it, but I'm like, I'm doing reviews now and it's recently out on video. Let's just do it. I mean, I'm not missing a whole lot. The action was hit or miss. I think the best part about it was just some of that humanity stuff they did, and that stuff where they went into that hospital or whatever it was, where the guy was all these people with limbs like legs and arms and stuff, and the guy who used to play guitar and he played it. And this whole notion of it's not your hands, it's your mind, and it's that can go both ways. I think that of course that's true and untrue at the same time. I mean, it is coming from your mind, but also if it is your hands that are doing it. So, but that scene with the guy playing a guitar with the fake hands was kind of cool too. And I was like, wow, this movie is going deeper than I thought it would. I thought it'd just be a brainless action, and really there isn't even all that much action. When it happens, it's like take it or leave it. I mean, it's really, I don't really like too much of the action they do nowadays. It really, it's shaky cam what the hell going on kind of action as far as I'm concerned. So I think I pretty much covered it. The most important thing I wanted to mention is what of course I did mention about just the humanitarian aspect, human aspect, and him adjusting to becoming a robot, which they didn't really cover in the first movie. I don't like the black look. I think they just should have kept him silver, like the original version. I saw that funny joke where it's like, well, I don't know what they called him, but they showed basically a design, whatever the hell they were doing with that. Seth Rogen's friend was doing a presentation of like this, I don't know what they called him, just where it was like a shot of the original design from the first 3 movies, and then they did a shot of like transformed into with the lights on the shoulders. I think that was kind of a nod to the mock-up from Robocop 2, the one who comes out and just like shoots himself in the head. Well, he doesn't shoot himself in the head. I think he shoots himself in the armor. Another thing that I kind of thought was lame, which maybe is kind of cool, different take on it, is the thing coming down for combat mode. In the trailers and stuff, I was like, oh, give me a break. But yeah, if you're doing, if you're taking a different direction, that's kind of cool. One thing that, I thought was a little ironic is that so many years on, almost 30 years later, it's like the footsteps in the original are so much cooler than the footsteps in this one. Also, the gun is so much more memorable in the first one. The gun in this, it's like they delve into so many details in the first one about him and his stuff, and in this it's just like, he's just fast and quick and he's got guns and they don't really care about that stuff, which I care about. Details of the production design of the suit and the guns and stuff, but whatever. Before I go too long, which I'm sure I already have, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for watching, and come quietly or there will be trouble.